Okay, that's a very little bit about Earn Your Way Out. So I'll tell you about a little bit more about it, and because Earn Your Way Out was the brainchild of this gentleman right here, David Kerr, who founded Integrity House 40 years ago? 50 years ago. 50 years ago. Earn Your Way Out will give inmates an opportunity to come out of prison earlier than their sentence by earning it, by being involved in making themselves better persons when they get out of prison than they went in. And we're going to be talking that, and as a result of participating in training, in education, job training, education, therapy, community service, work experience, journaling, yes, therapy. An inmate will get 1 day off his or her sentence for every 5 days participating in the program. And most importantly, reentry is so important these days. Obviously, we know that when someone comes out of prison, we want them to stay out of prison. However, reentry needs to start not when an inmate gets out of prison, but when they enter. And Earn Your Way Out will require the Department of Corrections to start a reentry plan in consultation with the inmate, right, Senator Cunningham? Upon entry into prison, not wait until they get out. One little bit of history about it. I had sponsored it along with Senator Cunningham when Governor Christie was in office, and unfortunately, we got it through both houses, but he vetoed it. Now, it's still stalled. Senator Cunningham has picked up the baton, gotten it through the Senate, gotten it through a committee in the Assembly, but it's stalled in one of the committees in the Assembly, and we need Governor Murphy's support, we need Speaker Coughlin's support, and that's what tonight is all about. It's about building awareness about how important it is to give inmates an opportunity to become better persons when they get out of prison than they went in. We have former inmates to talk about their experiences and how their experiences could be a lot better with Earn Your Way Out. So we're going to start with the one and only, my very, 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 very good friend, Senator Sandra Cunningham. Give Sandra a big hand.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And first of all, let me say, I've known Ray for a very long time. He was a very close friend of my husband's and mine. And when I decided to run for the Senate, I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go in terms of what kind of legislation was I going to work on and what kind of people I was going to help. And I went to the Senate thinking, well, I will just take up where my husband left off. He had been U.S. Marshal, he had been mayor, and he had been senator. But it wasn't until I had the fortune and misfortune of being assigned to sit next to Ray Lesniak in caucus every caucus day. And I listened to Ray, and although I'd known him, I had not really didn't know him as a legislator. And Ray certainly proved to be the most prolific legislator I can ever remember knowing, not even sitting next to. But I say all that to say, talking to Ray, I had the opportunity, I realized that the kinds of issues that Ray was standing up for, with the exception of the animals, because we have saved every animal known to man, but I had the opportunity to talk to Ray about a lot of issues, and I realized that was the direction I wanted to go in. I wanted to help people who had made mistakes in their lives and who deserved a second chance. And a great deal of that has to do with the fact that I watched, I listened, and more importantly, I learned a great deal from Ray Lesniak, in between being yelled at for laughing during caucus. But I'm very proud to be here today and to talk a little bit about to earn your way out. You know, one of the things that America does, other than incarcerates more people than any other civilized country, America makes the mistake of warehousing people. America does not send you to prison and teach you workable skills that you could find a job with. They don't give you the dignity. They don't make you think at the end of your term of that you have dignity, that you have rights, that you can be proud of yourself. Instead, once you're released, you are treated like an inmate for the rest of your life. That is not what it is supposed to be. We want people to leave incarceration feeling like they have been given another chance, feeling like the ball is in their corner, feeling like they are on top of the world because no matter what they did before, they can change it now in a positive way. And when you have programs such Earn Your Way Out, which gives people an opportunity to sit down and map out your whole experience while you're incarcerated, that helps, especially because you walk away with an idea of when you're going to be released. Now, most of us can put up with anything for a certain amount of time, just knowing that I'm going to be leaving, or the chances are I'm going to be leaving here on the 22nd of 2020, helps to give them motivation and helps to give them an opportunity to plan, and to think, and to decide who and what they're going to be. So I'm proud of this legislation. We got it through the Senate. We're not going to stop until we get it signed by the governor. This is just another way of giving people dignity and giving people a real opportunity. And that's the most important thing of all. Thank you.
Senator Cunningham, a great hand. Thank you for those kind words. And it's so true. We have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners. And when someone goes to prison, it's just not that person who's affected. That person has a family. So that family is affected. And that family is involved in a community. And that community is effective. And when folks get out of prison unprepared, they're likely and do wind up back in prison. And then we have the whole cycle again with that family and that community. And Earn Your Way Out is going to change that dynamic. And the father of Earn Your Way Out is here to talk about it, David Kerr.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate what you have done, Sandra, and many others. This is the most extraordinary legislation I've ever seen in my 50 years in the business, working with addicts, working with criminal addicts, running Integrity House. It's extraordinary because what it does is take people from prison, and in a sense, it says you can do this if you earn it. All you have to do is these things, and you actually get out early from prison. If you don't want to do it, you can sit back and watch. So it invigorates inmates immediately to do the right thing. So they're motivated, like Ray was saying, from the beginning, from all that they're doing and the curriculum we're laying out for them, to leave prison connected with a family of positivity rather than a drug dealer. It's the kind of legislation that will catch on in people's eyes and ears as they realize the impact it has on our criminal justice system in reducing the population of our state prisons, for example, just for starters. And as Sandra said, it will have a major impact on the lives of thousands of people because it starts them off right, earning what they need, rather than most of the guys that I've known on the streets were takers. And then they realize they have to give something, and they can't just take. They have to earn what they give. That's what we taught at Integrity House. And this is the kind of thing that, when Ray and I were talking about the Earn Your Way Out, this is the kind of thing that this bill, the kind of extraordinary thing this bill will do. It incentivizes the inmates to want to recover, to want to get out and do the right thing for a long time. Because if they don't, then there's a parole officer and so on and so forth. But imagine to leave prison with a smile on your face. I got out X amount of months early or years early. I know exactly where I'm going. I have a family of positive people out here that I've been meeting with while in prison. I'm not coming back here. So it's a very real effort at turning around the criminal justice system. I don't know if the governor realizes the impact of this extraordinary bill. He will, and many others will. And we can only hope and pray, and I'll work as hard as I can on getting the thing passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thank you. And we're here with this distinguished folks to make sure that the governor hears this message and gets behind this legislation. Sandra, I just want to mention one thing. We still have more animals to protect. There will always be a need to protect animals. One other thing with Earn Your Way Out, giving inmates as David was talking about and Sandra was talking about, a presumptive parole date. That if you're doing your job in prison, you know when you're going to get out. You have that hope. You can plan. Right now, it's up in the air. And too often, the time is extended for a year or 2 years or 3 years. I will tell you right now that within 5 years, from Earn Your Way Out being implemented, we will be able to close 2 prisons in New Jersey. And by closing 2 prisons in New Jersey, we'll save tax dollars, we'll save lives, and we'll increase public safety. And that's what Earn Your Way Out will do. And now we're going to hear from someone who knows what it is to be in prison. Greg?
So my name is Greg Muller. I'm 38 years old. I live in Union, New Jersey. I was incarcerated from 2009 until 2012. I was sentenced under the No Early Release Act, so I wouldn't be available for Earn Your Way Out. But it would have helped in preparation for me re-entering the community. So I was in the psychiatric section of Southwood State Prison. I was there, supposed to be for 3 months. I was there for 6. I had to be medicated. I also have a schizoaffective disorder, so that's why I was in the psychiatric unit. They had to titrate my medication before I went to general population. I saw a lot of other inmates who had been in there because they were self-medicating because of their mental illness. People don't understand, 2 million people in this country are incarcerated. Half of them in prison are mentally ill. So prison is like the new mental hospital. They've closed so many state hospitals. I was lucky enough to have a family that loves me and be involved with this organization called NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. I was also very fortunate enough to meet someone who's very special to me sitting in here today, Dr. Norma Bow and Be the Change, for always supporting me. I volunteer for a nonprofit now. When you're released from prison, you're given a 2-week supply of your medication, a prescription, and advice to go see a general practitioner. Does that make any sense? No. How are you going to find a general practitioner? You've just been locked up for a couple of years. So you're either going to take your 2 weeks, not fill the prescription, and unfortunately, when you self-medicate and you're on parole and you fail a drug test, you're going right back. You're not staying home. Fortunately enough, my parole officer, when I got it, I maxed out at 85% a 3-year sentence for an aggravated assault. She had worked with some special needs people out of the prison system, so she had connections for me. So I was able to find Bridgeway. I was able to find Trinitas and do an outpatient program. Meanwhile, people that I knew that were in parole with me, that were dealing with mental issues, were now self-medicating again, and where'd they go? Right back to prison. That kind of person needs to be in a detox and a hospital for dual diagnosis. They do not need to be put back in prison for the remainder of their sentence. It just doesn't make any sense. So what I say is, I am blessed with a support system that is just unbelievable. When you have a support system lined up for you, it does give you that same kind of feeling as to earn your way out. I apologize, I'm actually experiencing some symptoms right now. So I will say thank you to Senator Lesniak and everybody who came here today. My struggle will continue. I will have a mental illness for the rest of my life, but it doesn't mean I have to go to prison for the rest of my life.
Greg, thank you, thank you, thank you. And although Greg couldn't benefit from part of Earn Your Way Out, the presumptive parole date and the time off, however, the programs that will be instituted for him so that he will be prepared when he did get out will be there for him. And I met Greg working, volunteering, great part of his recovery, right? With these wonderful folks at Kean University. Be the change. Give them a great hand. Okay, now another fellow inmate, or feminine fellow inmate, Rhonda Lees. Rhonda?
That's okay, everybody gets my name wrong. You said Lige. It's Lige, but that's okay. That's okay.
Je prie de vous m'excuser. Je parle français.
Okay. All right, hi, everybody. Again, my name is Rhonda, and I, too, am formerly incarcerated. And what I will say about the social career development standpoint was there is none coming out. There is none. There's no one that you can talk to say, okay, help me figure out where I'm going next. Help me because, you know, I will need this, you know, everything from insurance to housing to whatever the need may be. But there was no such thing. You go in, they don't give you, or they did not, and they still don't, give you the resources that you need when you're coming out. I was given a resource guide when I left in the Mahan, and I'd say 3/4 of the book was defunct. All right, numbers were different, numbers were disconnected, numbers were changed, places moved, whatever the case may be. But I will say the one thing that actually needs to be done, and then on the other side, going and they say, well, you can go to social services, you know, and get all the Medicaid and whatever else you need. Well, I did that too, and I was denied because I was on my way to starting my educational career at Rutgers, and they told me I didn't qualify. So there needs to be inside a startup for people coming out. These social workers know when you're coming out. They know when you're coming. You might not know, but they know when you're coming out. So let's start to plan, you know, a few months early so you can talk it out and see where you want to go. A lot of folks did not take advantage of the educational track in prison. I did, and I'm glad I did. When I got out, I went to Rutgers, graduated with my bachelor's in criminal justice, of course, and I'm currently working on my master's. But with all that being said, there's still no solid foundation to use that. There are no jobs. Well, there may be jobs, but, you know, not for for us, you know. So, and I refuse to settle for a minimum wage job because I think I have a lot to offer and I'm going to do it. So with that being said, I too have a solid mentorship here with me, and that is Dr. Reverend Boyer and Ms. Gail Muhammad from Women Who Never Give Up. And I'm one of those women that's not giving up. You know, you're not going to tell me no. You know, I'm going to ask why. Why not? So with all that being said, there has to be a something inside to start everybody out on the right track so that we do not go back. I know too many that have gone back because they could not get the job. They went back to what they know, right? So they're back inside, and that's just not an option. It's not an option. But, you know, with that being said,
Give Rhonda a great hand for coming forward and telling her story. And Rhonda, we hope and we expect, as David said, that the time off for participating in a reentry program will give more people, more inmates, an incentive while they're in prison to make themselves better persons and better prepared to get out. So now we're going to hear from another former inmate, Tyrone Barnes. Tyrone?
Good evening. Glad to be here. Me and Ray, we actually met. I had him on my show called WBAI Criminal Justice Report, called On Account, and we was discussing this very same bill a couple of months ago. Yeah. So I think to bring this all into fruition, earn your way out is essential in the sense that you have individuals. I get a lot of calls. You know, they waiting for this bill to pass, but you have a lot of individuals that have served the mandatory minimum of their term. For example, if an individual is confined for he received a sentence of a 10 with a 5-year term, the remaining of that 5-year term, after he served the mandatory minimum of that 5-year term, the remaining of the term is discretionary. So he goes up for parole, and parole decide his life within, or her life within 5 to 10 minutes, and then they essentially give another hit after hit after hit, which means they extend the sentence far exceeding actually, and sometimes more than the actually mandatory minimum. And I can speak to that. My original sentence, I was born to a 14-year-old mother, raised in the crack addicted cocaine area, and committed my first charge after graduating Central High School. 6 months later, received my first charge of robbery with a BB gun, went to trial, received a 30 with a 10-year sentence. Go up for parole after receiving the 10-year sentence, serving the 10-year statutory term, and then I received 6 parole hits after that. So the first hit was a 8-year hit. And this is how I'm gonna bring it back to how this bill is very important. When I received the 8-year hit, I learned the law when I was down in 10 years. I reversed the 8-year hit. I'm the only one in the state of New Jersey ever reversed a hit at that time with that magnitude. A hit of that magnitude. I reversed the 8-year hit. The parole board was stunned. They was wondering how I reversed the hit of that magnitude that quick. I went up for parole 2 years later instead of 8 years later, and they gave me another hit, 36-month hit, another hit, 24 after that, another hit, 23. All the hits, I'm in federal court, I'm in state appellate court. Meanwhile, DOC gave recommendation scores of times for me to get released, outlined numerous achievements that I achieved. I completed the programs over and over again, the same exact programs. In fact, I got a guy right now. He served 46 years in New Jersey State Prison. His name is Wilford Lee Holmes. He was eligible for parole 20 years ago. So he received numerous hits, In fact, what it's called is actually a de facto death penalty. This guy's not even physically capable of committing another crime. So anyway, there's the parole board totally ignore the recommendation that the DOC, who spent years with this individual while confined in prison. You notice I'm using the word individual, not inmate. We got to really get out that term of using the word inmate, which DOC classify individuals as less than human, 3/5 of a man, and the history goes on. So we really got to reshape New Jersey's language around calling individuals inmates. But to bring it all to a close is that this bill is essential in the sense that it takes the power from the parole board and allows the individual to show his progress, and the parole board can manufacture evidentiary check mark sheet that they usually use. They usually use a form and they check it off and they say you deny parole after assessing you in 5 minutes. They have to thoroughly analyze the reentry plan that's incorporated. I appreciate the senator who's been on the front line, Cunningham, at bringing this into fruition, David Kerr and Ray, for bringing this. This is urgently needed, and it's needed like yesterday. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tyrone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I love your show, man. And don't get me started on the parole board, right, Senator Cunningham? When we get Earn Your Way Out implemented, we won't need 2/3 of the parole board. So can you imagine we can save another $10 million just by that alone? What do you have to say about that, Reverend Boyer?
Nothing to say about that. I'll leave that alone, especially because one of my good colleagues was just confirmed to the parole board. But what I will say, so our organization, Salvation and Social Justice, we have 4 pillars, and for us to support any initiative, it has to check those 4 boxes. One is abolition. We are looking to abolish the drug war and ultimately to abolish prison as we know it. And so this piece in particular speaks to us because anything that reduces prison population, we are in favor of. Second, there has to be restorative elements. There has to be restorative justice elements. This speaks very closely to that because it looks to restore the individuals and they're able to take power back in their own hands, specifically beyond just our organization, which is faith-rooted, but also as a pastor, as a Christian pastor in particular, our theology is very deeply rooted in redemption. This, in and of itself, is a redemptive piece. It puts power back in people's hands and gives incentive for people to work on the self-actualization and the self-work necessary and incentivizes them in order to be released. The third box is transformation. For us in particular, and one of the reasons why we stress abolition, we're not very interested in criminal justice reform because we see prison as just a new form of slavery. As we know, slavery was never abolished in the United States. The 13th Amendment has made that very clear. Slavery just moved from the plantation to the prison, especially when we look at how many dollars are dedicated to incarcerating people and the incentives behind that. So we have no interest in criminal justice reform. So if it isn't abolitionist in nature, we really don't have a lot of interest in it. But this is transformative in that it puts power in individuals' hands who are incarcerated. And finally, it's about coalition. What kind of coalition is necessary to make something like this happen? We're honored to be at this table. It's an honor to work with the senator. Some of my first legislative work was with Senator Lesniak around the isolated confinement bill, which we're proud to say is moving.
We still got to get that signed into law.
Right.
That's another piece of legislation I sponsored, put on the Governor Christie's desk, and he vetoed it. We're going to do that, too.
Exactly. And
That'll be the next forum.
exactly.
That was also my bill, too.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it was, of course.
That's right.
Senator Cunningham always reminds me. She's my partner.
That's right. And it's to Senator Cunningham's credit that that bill is actually alive and well again and it was just voted out of the Judiciary Committee of the Assembly, and it is up again in the Senate in the coming weeks. So it is finally moving forward. And so again, thank you for this. Thank the both of you for continued transformation of the criminal justice system.
Thank you, Reverend. Big hand. And by the way, I have abolished something. I abolished the death penalty. Let's not forget about that. Bishop James, you want to say a few words?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much first for inviting me to this table. And I agree with my colleague, Reverend Boyer. This bill, this legislation is necessary. I chair a whole bunch of places, Black Ministers, Newark, North Jersey Committee of Black Churchmen, but I come from a corporate background at PSE&G, and I still chair the Human Service Advisory Council of Essex County. We talk about what can a person get when they are released. I heard my sister talk about she went for public assistance. She was denied. Well, one of the things that we're talking about is how to change, especially in Essex County. A lot of people don't know, depending on what you were incarcerated for, if you did more than 6 months in one day and had to deal with drugs, well, you couldn't get food stamps. Well, guess what? We've changed that in Essex County. We've changed that in Essex County. There's some other things that we're looking at. From my corporate days, we were working with corporations, real corporations, that said if you get the skill set inside, you can come outside and we'll find a real job where you don't have to go back to slinging and what you know. That's a different look. We've got companies lined up. I did about 8 years as a chaplain at Garden State. And so I have some of the brothers and sisters that are coming out now. They're now members of the church. And we put a program in so the young folk that are trying to get into the system, we're letting them tell them about the system. And so I think that earn your way out. You get the skill set, we're going to find a real job, a living wage for you, and we're going to put the support behind you. And the reality is we're going to go to some of the largest corporations in this state and say, put some money behind real reentry and stop talking the talk and walk the walk. So I'm 100% for you.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gail, you want to say a few words? Gail? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. We love you. You know that's why I came all the way from South Jersey, just to be with you. First, I want to just thank you, Senator Lesniak, really from the bottom of my heart. When I started this work in 2005, you were our go-to guy for everything. So we want to thank you for being a champion for us in this criminal justice arena. It's been really near and dear to my heart because my husband died in prison fighting for his freedom. But the spirit of him still lives because I'm still fighting for everybody's freedom now. So I want to thank Tyrone for bringing to the attention of this body that we changed the language many years ago on, rest in peace, Eddie Ellis, who ran the talk show for WBI, I think on the count, if I said that right, but he wrote a letter, open letter to the public on a national and state by state to change the language. We want to be people that are incarcerated. We just want our family members to be called people. And we figured if you treat them and call them people, maybe that the folks that was in charge would treat them like people. So I urge all of us here in New Jersey, since myself and my sister partner over there forged this ally many years ago to work with the Black and Latino caucuses to make our parties work together with everybody. And so 20 some odd years, I'm sitting across looking at my hearts, and the former governor who put us all to work on that side of the table when he saw the vision that we needed to eliminate the 1,000 feet school zone, which was my first real advocacy job here in the state of New Jersey. And we did that together. And so we want to continue to lead the country in criminal justice reform here in the state of New Jersey. We've done a lot, but we've got a hell of a lot more to go, because now 30 little black boys will go to jail before 1 or 2 white or 3 or 4 Latino. And when I started my pitch to the little boys, I used to count out 11 of them. Now we've doubled. So I feel as though we still have a lot more to do. And to earn your way out for these guys, I think, is excellent. And thank you for keeping this
Thank you,
going.
Gail. Thank you, Gail. And thank you for reminding me how great I am. So, but you did also remind me of something else that I sponsored along with Senator Cunningham, because we eliminated the mandatory minimum sentences that were most responsible for putting black and Latino people in jail when the same folks for the same offense in another area would have gotten probation or nothing. So thank you for your help on that. So, we are honored to have a former governor here, my very close friend, Governor James Mcgreevey. Jim?
Thank you, Senator, and just a lot of old friends. And I wanted to also say congratulations to Senator Cunningham. Her expungement bill went through the Senate committee today, so that's good news. With the Cunningham cleanser, which I call that. But, you know, with Senator Lesniak, so the truth be told, when Earn Your Way Out was Ray and I had met with, Ray had Senator Lesniak, a number of conversations with Senator Cunningham. But Dave Kerr, who's sitting next to me, been talking about Earn Your Way Out since Moses was around. And he talked about, by the way, I was just with the good former councilwoman, as she just was honored by St. James AME Church CRC. This woman's got more outfits than I do socks. That's all I'll say, Pastor. But what Senator Lesniak realized is that you have to give dignity to persons that are behind the wall and give them the opportunity to improve. So what I sense is, you know, we have the greatest racial disparity in the country here in New Jersey, not Alabama, Georgia. We have 12 times the number of African Americans in prison as to the general population, over 6 times the number of Latinos. So we're way off. We're profoundly off. And I think what this bill does with Senator Cunningham's legislation is understand the importance of giving people the opportunity for corrective behavior. I remember I worked at Exodus Ministries in Harlem, and I'd ask them to call for a GED, and literally they couldn't pick up the phone. Because for 7 years or 17 years, and Sean knows this, people are taught to acquiesce. People are taught to do what the man says. And so this is all about empowering. And so I just want to thank Senator Cunningham, Senator Lesniak. This is so important in terms of pre-release and discharge planning with the JCAP process. But it's also, as Ray and I, we shared, but it's also about a number of issues, including housing. When you talk about parole and Department of Correction housing, I mean, the reality is many of our guys don't receive their Medicaid cards. They don't have a successful transition from incarceration to the community. They live in housing, candidly, that doesn't have computers, that don't have access to those critically needed services. So when we start talking about inmate reentry plans, part of it has to be to hold or ensure that the service providers that are working for corrections, that are working for parole, have the necessary benefits and resources so that inmates, the formerly incarcerated or the technically still incarcerated in DOC, have the resources. And Sean knows this. I mean, we're in houses where there's 60 individuals under the auspices of the Department of Corrections and 3 computers. And I mean, Pastor, people come down and they want to, it takes 45 minutes or 30 minutes to fill out a resume or fill out an application form, and 6 guys are waiting to talk to their loved one, to their family members, and it's just crazy. So part of this is, and Senator Lesniak and I had the conversation in Monmouth County, that it's not only educational services, not only psychological services and substance abuse and social rehabilitative, but when somebody's getting the dime of the state of New Jersey for the Department of Corrections for this transitional housing, there needs to be a basic threshold of acceptable services so that guys can make the transition. These just can't be post-released housing that don't have the opportunity for the individual men to come back to the community. Hey, Cook.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to switch the focus just a tad before we open it up to the rest of the panel for discussion and questions. And but I want Gail Cheneyfield to talk about, because she's a go-getter. And one of the things that we have to do to get this passed is go and get. We have to get Governor Murphy's support. This bill has been pending, passed the Senate over a year ago, went through a committee in the Senate, went through a committee in the Assembly, and we still haven't heard one word from Governor Murphy whether he supports it or not. So we have to get the word out in the community. We're going to have, Sarah's going to talk about how you can do that online a little bit later. And Gail's a street lady, street person, no, that doesn't sound right.
Say, you sound,
I'm sorry.
I mean, walking the street. You got to get ready to call me a street walker?
All right, I'm sorry.
I love you anyhow.
Gail,
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. Gail Cheneyfield, Newark, New Jersey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gail Cheneyfield Jenkins, and I'm a former councilwoman in the city of Newark. I was a Central Ward councilwoman, but prior to that, I had the distinct honor in 1994 of meeting Raymond Lesniak as a lawyer for the city of Newark. At that time, we were suing Port Authority to get the monies that were rightfully owed to the residents of the city of Newark that the Port Authority was deliberately hiding with double books. And the criminal justice reform system in New Jersey, as our esteemed Governor Mcgreevey has mentioned, and several of you who have spoken prior to me speaking, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's broken. And we know it's completely broken anytime that we're here talking about earn your way out, and this bill has been sitting in the Assembly, and we're talking about building a juvenile detention center in the city of Newark. So the governor can't have it both ways. You're either for social justice reform, and that means talking about making sure when someone comes out as an individual, and I'm so glad, Tyrone, you said stop calling them inmates, okay? Call them individuals, all right? They've been incarcerated, they've done their time, and they come out and they're penalized even more because they got a gun held to their head by their parole officer saying you got to hurry up and get housing, you got to hurry up and get a job, you got to hurry up and do this, you got to hurry up and do that. And so the pressure of that is enormous. And so when you have not had a skill given to you prior to you leaving, being incarcerated, that is double trouble right there, because you got to come back out, you got to feed your family. That is the basic instinct of all humanity, okay? You're going to do what it takes to feed yours and take care of yours. So family reunification, we haven't touched on that. You know, there's a lot of families that get broken because somebody has gone to jail, all right? We have to talk about the fact that, I'm glad you said the word individual, we also have to change, we also have to include in that dialogue wrongfully convicted, because we have some brothers and sisters who have been wrongfully convicted and have been put in prison and are serving time. So what we're doing to help push Earn Your Way Out is we have some petitions, people like Donna Jackson and some other folks, Ollie Hall, and different people in the community. And we're going to churches and we're going to pastors. And Bishop James has been helping us spearhead this. I had the opportunity to speak to Reverend Boyer. And he said, Gail, send me the information because I'm already on board doing something. But we have a petition that people need to sign and say, earn your way out. This bill, stop playing around. Don't go on summer break because you have lives that have been held up. And we know when people go to the parole board, that automatically in New Jersey, there's not one person, and if you find them, please bring them because they're a unicorn, that has been able to get out on the first parole. You're the unicorn, thank you. So we're going to bronze you, baby. But for the most part, we are not even able to talk about the mental health diagnosis and making sure that that happens. Earn your way out gives people an opportunity to not only empower themselves, but have a plan when they leave out. And they don't have to worry about that clock ticking. So we're working on petitions, and if anyone wants a copy of the petition, it talks about the bill. We're going to halfway houses, we're going to churches, we're going to the grocery stores, we're going to, down to the welfare office, standing in the line. When the people come there in the morning time, we're asking them, please sign this, and explaining to them that we are not doing our brothers and sisters any favor by spending so much money on the front end, keeping them incarcerated, as opposed to giving them vocational training, education, mental health, helping them with drug dependency, getting them housing, and standard housing, not substandard housing. Standardized housing, because where are they going to put on the application where you've been for the last year? They want a reference where you've been at, where was your last place of residency? You think you'll put Northern State in and get an apartment right away? You can't. So that's why it's important for the community to be involved. That's why it is important for this governor to understand that he ran on a social justice platform. And so we have to define what social justice means. And social justice means justice for everyone, and looking at socially, are we impacting and doing the best we can with the money we're using, instead of spending it on the back end where it's not being necessary. I mean, there's too many prison reentry programs around, and I'm not trying to put anybody out of business, but I am. Because that money that they're using should be spent right up front in the jails right now, because there was a time. And and I'm so glad, Gail, that you were able to get your, Rhonda, you were able to get your degree. Because a lot of prisons, my brother worked at Northern State, they do not have professors or teachers that come there. So you got to make sure that this takes place. Because they have child support. That didn't stop when they went to the prisons. You have to worry about your surcharges for your driver's license. So I am so glad that I had an opportunity to meet a mother, Mary Baker, who has been fighting to get her son out of jail for 27 years. And when I turned around and was talking to her, I said, the person I have to turn to is one of the most prolific, as Sandra has said, but one of the most compassionate and one of the most intelligent lawmakers that I have had the honor of working with. And knowing that his passion is there to fight, to make sure that everyone gets a fair shake and level the playing field and tear down the walls that are keeping our brothers and sisters incarcerated. So I want to thank you, Senator Lesniak.
Thank you. And thank you, Gail. So our goal will be 100,000 petitions that we will deliver to Assemblyman Coughlin, Assembly Speaker Coughlin, and Governor Murphy. And Gail, you're going to do 20,000 of that 100,000.
Let me tell you something.
Am I
did
lowballing you?
Yes, you are, darling. Because I did 80,000 to keep
Oh.
St. Michael's open.
All right.
When we delivered them to Chris Christie, along with Bishop James.
All right, let's do it again.
That's right.
We're going to open it up. We're going to have in a little bit Sarah Mack, the director of the Lesniak Institute, we'll have a presentation how you can go online and promote petition signing, because, all right, forget about the 100,000. We'll do 150,000.
That's right.
All right. So let me open it up to anyone who wants to jump in to say a few words. Anyone? Cookie.
Hello, everyone.
I know you.
I think you know me. I'm Cookie Rivera. I'm the Criminal Justice Reform Chair for the Latino Action Network, and I run the Integrated Justice Alliance media listservs on Facebook and Yahoo. I must say that all of this goes back to the seeds that Governor Mcgreevey planted back in the early 2000s. It was through his leadership and support that I met Gail Muhammad, and that the New Jersey Black Issues Convention and the Hispanic Directors Association got together and said, wait a minute here, what's going on here? And most of this, and all of the decades of what's going on right now through this leadership, through Senator Lesniak and Sandra Cunningham and Bonnie Watson Coleman and so many others, this is what we're sitting in the garden of those seeds that were planted at that time. My comments that I would make about this is that through the advocacy over the last couple of decades, I think it was in a Star Ledger article under Governor Corzine's reign, where it showed that we, through our advocacy, were able to close down 2.5 prisons. We closed down Riverfront Prison. We closed down Kearney. We closed down the gang unit in Northern State Prison. And we did a lot of good things with that. And there was a price tag attached to that. There was a $75 million savings to the state of New Jersey for all of that. You, Senator Lesniak, and we are hoping to shut down 2 more prisons. We have certainly reduced the prison population, just not the racial disparities here in New Jersey. But we do not know, or maybe it might, let me just speak for me, where did those $75 million go? Because did they go to incarcerated services or preparatory services? Did they go to reentry programs? Did we forget that we have one of the highest rates of max outs in the country? So it's not always a parole reentry program either. It has to be creative, and it doesn't fit everybody. It has to be alive like we are and breathing. So I want us to consider that we did not follow the money enough, or the money wasn't reallocated properly to where it should be. Because you want to put it back in the general budget, or do you want to put it back in services that will make this actually work? God bless you. So that's my comment. Follow the money, but make it work this time. We see what's happening with prison construction here, and that's inappropriate. Use that to build something else.
Thank you very much, Cookie. Thank you, and a very, very good point. Because when we get throwback, and we have gotten throwback from the Department of Corrections, how much is this going to cost? Wrong question. How much is it going to save? Exactly. So anyone else in the panel want to? Yes, Efron. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam. How you doing, Senator? Thank you for having me here. My question actually is for Greg. Greg, I appreciate you sharing your information and the struggles you had to go through. Being Muslim and being South Asian and having connection with the Arab community, you brought up your mental health issues. In our community, that's something that's relatively been swept under the rug, but it's now coming to the forefront now. It's kind of stereotypical that there's so many Indian and Pakistani doctors, but nobody really discusses this in our community, and it's slowly starting to come to light right now. So based on your experience that you just had, I think you said you had an aggravated assault, right? So what would have been most helpful for you from a mental health perspective while you were incarcerated, and what could have been done about that if you had a chance to wave a magic wand and fix everything?
Well, first of all, when I went to county jail, they took me off of 5 of my medications. They didn't even wean me off of them. They just pulled it right off me. So I was in close watch several times. County jail was a little different than state prison. State prison, they would not let me go to population until I was titrated on my medication. I did see a mental health therapist we don't leave the unit in the psychiatric unit. We stay on the tier. We don't go anywhere. So they were able to bring the medication to me, bring the therapist to me. So I see a therapist once a week. But the thing is, when you're ready to go to general population, you get a brand new psychiatrist. There's only 2 on a phase, and there's like 1,000 guys. I imagine they don't see all 1,000, but they see a good number of them. So for me, my whole issue is when you get out, don't sweep it under the rug. You know, make it known that you have an illness and that you need help. And educating parole officers, my parole officer was a little different because, like I said, she dealt with mentally ill people before, and hooked them up with a organization. Bridgeway paid for my medication for 6 months when I first got out. So, I mean, I didn't have to worry. They also started Social Security Disability for me about 9 months before I got out of prison, and I got it on the first shot. I was diagnosed when I was 10 years old, so it wasn't like it was something that just happened when I was in my 20s. I was still living with this since I was 10. So the re-entry part of it is you have to make the person feel like they should be out, and I got to take medication for the rest of my life. So, I mean, there's different things you can do. You can definitely make a person feel more welcome, have a parole officer know what they're talking about, hook them up with like a Trinitas or a Bridgeway or a Serve, whatever you want to do, and just let them know that they're not alone, and if they need help, they can get it.
Greg, thank you. And you bring up a very, very good point about the culture of corrections. One of the most significant parts of Earn Your Way Out is that it will change the culture of corrections. You won't be an inmate. You'll be a person. You'll be a human being who people care about. And that's what we want to make happen. And also in terms of mental health, with regard to solitary confinement, if you don't have a mental health problem when you went into solitary confinement, you're going to have one when you get out. So that's another.
There was actually a gentleman that was on my tier that was in solitary confinement for 19 years.
Oh my God.
With no windows, just horrible. So, I mean, that's the way it works sometimes. It's just
well, we're going to.
punishment.
Senator Cunningham's going to change that. That's for sure, and
Gotta
very
hope
soon.
so.
Paige, do we have any questions from folks, or not yet? We have a question. Stand up. A microphone's. Identify yourself, please, as well.
Hello, my name is Norris Patterson. I'm from Trenton, New Jersey. I'm coming to ask, when you look at a person who you're considering to be on the Earn Your Way Out program, are you looking at those who have a mandatory sentence, and do they have to actually join a program while they're in prison, your program, in order to earn the 1 day for 5 days in this program?
That's a very good question, and Greg addressed that earlier, because if you're in if you have been sentenced for not early release or mandatory minimum, we cannot change that. However, so you won't get the day off. However, you will get every single other aspect of Earn Your Way Out. When you get into prison, there will be a consultation with you and to develop a program, a reentry program, and what are your needs, and in order to educate yourself, train yourself, get mental health treatment, get therapy, get recovery, get journaling, get 12-step work, whatever you need will be provided. And also, after your mandatory minimum, they're not going to be able to tack on any additional time on top of that.
Can I?
Senator Cunningham?
One of the things that just happened recently, the governor has opened up TAG. TAG is the Tuition Assistance Program, so that people who are incarcerated can attempt to get TAG like anyone else. There is a program that operates throughout New Jersey, New York, in which professors from places such as Princeton, Rutgers University, are going into the prisons and educating people, so that some people are coming out with their degrees or enough credits to then continue going to school. So that is one of the opportunities that is happening in the jail, and it kind of goes in with what we're doing here, because this gives people an opportunity to take classes. So they can certainly get credit for that.
I just want to say one thing, that one of the people in my life that's extremely important to me is here today, who actually used to teach in Northern State Prison. That's Dr. Norman Bowe over there. So she taught in Northern State until they just couldn't do it anymore. But she taught there for quite some time.
I did teach in the prisons, and I also taught at Edna Mahan as well. And I brought the same courses that I was teaching here at Kean, I'm a full-time professor here, to there. Out of the 3,200 people incarcerated at Northern State Prison, only 50 were eligible for the courses that many of us were trying to teach in the prison. No. At that time, I think it was Governor Christie, I'm hoping I'm getting that right, had cut the educational budget for the prisons. And so people were all of a sudden ineligible, right? It's very successful when you go into the prison and teach classes there. People are hungry for the knowledge. They were all quizzing each other. The whole tier takes the class because, you know, if you're giving an exam, they're all studying together. But I want to tell you of a very success story. So one of the students that I taught at Northern came out, ended up here at Kean University, finished his bachelor's degree, got his master's in social justice here, and then went to law school. So these programs work, but so few people are eligible. The other thing Greg brought up, and as a nurse...
Excuse me, as Senator Cunningham said, they're not eligible because we don't have the resources to make them eligible.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure. People like us are
Well,
willing to
why
go
would
do
they
it.
not be eligible?
Well, they were ineligible for lots of reasons, and it was also sort of arbitrary who got picked
Exactly.
to be able to go to
Exactly.
these classes.
Exactly.
And I would think out of 3,200 inmates incarcerated, people incarcerated, more than 50 would have been eligible.
So that's the key, changing the culture of corrections.
Yes.
And that you'll see that 50 people to be 1,500 or more.
Absolutely.
For sure. Renee, you have something to say, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the bill again, Earn Your Way Out, and how it helps us to reframe.
Renee, introduce yourself.
Sorry, hi. Renee Kubiatis with the Anti-Poverty Network of New Jersey. I think Earn Your Way Out helps us to reframe all the issues that we're talking about, and thank you to all of the speakers and everything that you're all doing to change this culture in New Jersey. But I think of, you know, people who are in prison a lot of times are there because of the result of poverty and survival behavior, because they didn't have access to stable housing, to food, to all of these other things, to, you know, behavioral health care. And this is many times criminalized, especially for people of color, right? And I work with folks all the time in our network who still think, well, I've made a bad decision or a bad choice. And I'll ask them, did you really make a bad decision or do a bad action? Or were all of your options bad to begin with, and you didn't have any good options available to you? So as a social worker, I don't believe necessarily in good versus bad. I think reform's more about the opportunities that weren't there before, or the support that wasn't there before. And certainly at the Anti-Poverty Network and others in this room, we try to reframe poverty as systemic poverty and structural racism issues that we need to really get to the root of, and I think this helps. We need the supports for returning citizens that weren't there before. We need to remove the barriers, as Governor Mcgreevey talked about, and I know that others on this panel are working towards to housing and other assistance. For example, last year, the Center for Women in Work at Rutgers produced a short report showing that because of changes in our high school equivalency, the GED exam, over the last few years, 50% of people cannot pass it who are trying to get into just decent jobs, right? Not necessarily trying to go on to college, but they can't even get a decent job because they can't pass the exam, right? So I think it's about reframing the debate again and really treating people with the dignity and worth that they have as just being born and being human beings.
Renee, thank you very, very much. Bishop, just 1 second, because you reminded me of something when I was growing up, because we had a great police officer, Eddie Gray. And Eddie Gray ran community programs for us in Elizabeth. And his theme was, there's no such thing as a bad kid. And I know, because I was one of those bad kids. But because he convinced me that there's no such thing as a bad kid, I didn't turn out to be a bad kid. And by the way, I will be talking to you about my affordable housing initiative. I'm going to rope Sandra in again, of course, with open arms. We're going to need her in the future. Bishop.
Thank you. In the form of education, New York Theological Seminary has one of the greatest programs for inmates in Sing Sing prison. Their graduation, of course, was this past weekend. However, of course, those that were incarcerated, but they graduated, and 50 inmates from Sing Sing with their Masters of Divinity. I've talked to the president as well as the founder, Dr. Hunt, and we're talking about how to bring it across the bridge. And so many people find their God in prison. How wonderful it would be to come out of prison with the proper credentials from a school of theology that is worldwide known for itself. And so we're working on that as well. And the professors at New York Theological Seminary are willing to go. They said, if we can go to Sing Sing, we can get to New Jersey.
Fantastic, and we'll bring him there. Governor, you had something to say?
I just want to pick up what the Bishop said. Thank you. Is that's a tremendous program, and as Senator Cunningham said, in terms of the STEPS program and what we're trying to do with, and I know Sean knows, and Rhonda and Gail, what we're trying to do is, Cookie's been doing this longer. She just looks good. But we've been trying to bring back, and so one of the things we're also talking about is Newark Theological. Is we've got Newark Theological right in the city of Newark and providing people opportunities for education. But I think that's what Senator Cunningham's legislation does, is not only utilizing the Pell Grants, but utilizing the TAG Grants to give permission to the Department of Education. Because, Senator, so often the universities aren't getting the full compensation back. So if they have the Pell Grant and the TAG Grant, there'll be enough to pay to compensate professors for their time and for their benefits. So that's a step in the right direction to increase.
Thank you, Governor Gill. Oh, please.
My name is Antone Henshaw. We don't need to bring nothing back across the, from New York to New Jersey. We already have it. And we have it, and I'm baffled. I'm really, really baffled how we don't know this. And the work began a long time ago with Senate Bill 4202. And that legislation was passed from these two women who came inside and asked us what we needed in New Jersey in prison. I want to first declare, I want to apologize to everyone in this room for my former behavior that led me to prison for 30 years. And I just came home September of 2018. Thank you. And inside, Koki and Gail came in and asked, they said, what are you doing here? And what can we do to help you? And my answer to that question was education. And they ran around the state, up and down this turnpikes, to get education mandatory in the state of New Jersey for prisoners. So that is in place right now. And it baffles me that NJ STEP, New Jersey, scholarship and scholarship, what is it? New Jersey? Education in prisons. All right, and normally I run that off because everywhere I go they ask me about it. I am the first person in an adult male facility to graduate with an associate's degree in liberal arts. And it's from your legislation. You guys were part of the legislation when this happened. I am also the first adult male to graduate inside an adult male facility with this BA in social justice. I graduate this Wednesday at Rutgers in North. So
That's my alma mater.
no doubt.
All right. A lot of Rutgers guys here,
Yes.
and gals here.
But there's thousands of us, and we're still voiceless. So I'm saying this, that we have a program that's working. We have a program that is not underfunded. It's just that inside the DOC, it can't expand because there's no space. So just in East Jersey where I was, we don't even call it East Jersey State Prison. From the DOC to the prisoners and the prison itself, it's called East Jersey University, where we literally changed the culture of how corrections is done at that institution. And what wound up happening was, when we began to graduate, like you just described the brothers in Sing Sing, which is extraordinary, our first graduation was 60, and nobody ever heard of it. And just East Jersey, we graduated 63, and I want to say 2015. And the Commissioner of Corrections came in, and you know what his first thing he said out of his mouth in his keynote speech? We do not warehouse in the state of New Jersey. And we had to sit there and listen to that. And we were in a warehouse in the prison.
Well, we're going to change that. And I want to thank you very much for apologizing. No need to, but that was so powerful. A lot of folks know here that 2:30 in the morning a few years ago, two guys walked into my bedroom, and I looked up, and the first guy said, "Shoot him." And then his partner said, "Stay cool. We're not going to hurt you." And then he said, "We're good people. We're just in a bad place right now." And what got me is he didn't say we're not bad people. He said we're good people, Rev, Bishop. We're just in a bad place right now. They took my money. They didn't harm me. Captured a few days later. I went and I testified on their behalf. And what struck me, to get them into treatment, David, get them into treatment so that they could recover, so that they wouldn't be in prison not getting the help that they need. But when I went and I testified, Antoine Neal, he thanked me. And then when he came out and got a job, he looked me up and said, "I just want to thank you again. I'm on my feet, and I ain't going back." So thank you for what you have just done for everyone. Let's give Rodney.
Anton.
Thank you. God bless you. Give Senator Cunningham a big hand. All right.
Bravo. Thank you.
And Senator, we're going to make sure that everyone here will be present when your bill gets signed by Governor Murphy. All right. All right. And by the way, before I forget, because I did mention Rutgers, I want to thank Kean University for giving us this great opportunity and for sponsoring the Lesniak Institute. They had Dr. Farahi could not be here. He's at a commencement that's going on too as well. But he's been greatly supportive of all of the stuff that the Lesniak Institute is doing. Sean, did you have something to say?
Thank you, Senator.
Sean, we know each other a little bit, don't we?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Senators, Governor, Dave, all my friends here, Reverend, Bishop. So I'm the Executive Director of Blessed Ministries, and Senator Lesniak, I did read the bill, so I do have a couple of questions regarding the bill. Okay, so I did notice that it left out sex offenders, and I wanted to ask a question regarding sex offenders. And here's why I need to ask this question, because we're very heavily involved in reentry. We get a lot of, the majority of our caseloads are sex offenders. Is that the same for you, Jim? You get right, the majority, because they're the most people, body of individuals that are being released right now. And in my 20 years of doing this business, I've interviewed obviously a large number, and there are different tiers okay? You have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? And so, and I've discovered that a lot of the tier 1s and tier 2s, just by interviewing them personally, ministering to them, counseling them, you will find that there is a large population of individuals that were just dating, really dating girls that were maybe a year younger than them. And so every situation is different. And in the employment world, when I put them in jobs, they end up being some of the greatest employees that the companies, they stay on the job. Their retention rate is higher than a lot of the other cohorts. And so that's one question. Another thing that, as you know, Senator, I'm very focused on employment and sustainability. There are a lot of employers here in the state of New Jersey that are not participating in the reintegration process of individuals being released. We have a huge oil industry here, and those jobs pay anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000. And I don't know about, I can speak for myself, I don't know about you, Governor, but I haven't had one individual get hired by an oil company in the state of New Jersey that came home from prison, okay?
I don't think I'm going to be much help with them since I've sued them twice.
That's okay. But, so one of the things that I think we need to happen in conjunction to the Earn Your Way Out is obviously earn your way into career opportunities. Individuals, especially any employer that uses prison labor in the state of New Jersey, that individual, I'm going to call them an employee because that's what they are. They should be able to go and apply at that same job, that same company, and be hired upon release, and not being told after they are released, I can't hire you because you have a record. It is so demoralizing when a person comes to my office and they just finished doing 5 years worth of work for a particular company, and they can't even get hired at that company.
Sean, if they're doing that, let us know, because Sandra, Senator Cunningham, and I sponsored Ban the Box. They can't do that anymore. So if you
We're going to talk about Ban the Box off key.
You bet. But let me talk about the sex offenders, and it's kind of like what Greg said in terms of no early release as well. First of all, they're not left out. They still will have the opportunity, will have a reentry plan developed for them and with them, and have all the educational opportunities and training and therapy and treatment that go along with it. What they will not qualify for is the time off for participating in it. And politics and getting legislation through is the art of compromise. And I can tell you, if we did include sex offenders, no early release folks, we wouldn't get the bill through. So we have to take one step at a time, but they're not left out. They will still have an opportunity to improve themselves. And we'll talk about the other issue at another time soon. Yes, Mary?
Hi, my name is Mary Baker. I'm the CEO of Walking in Innocent and Wildleaf Mom. So my question is, which I always hear that's always under the table, is the wrongly convicted. With the Earn Your Way Out program, what would you consider for people that are wrongfully convicted? Because if a person spent 20 years in prison and they go fill out a job application, do they say they're convicted of a crime, or where have I been in 20 years?
As you know, and I'm involved, and we're going to straighten that situation out as well. But that's another issue. We really can't. The wrongful conviction issues, we have to take on a case-by-case basis. But that's one of the reasons, and only one of the reasons why I abolished the death penalty. We had a guy, Byron Halsey, from the city of Plainfield, okay? Convicted of one of the most heinous crimes you can possibly imagine. Killing and sexually assaulting and driving nails into a 7-year-old and 8-year-old boy and girl. One juror held out against the death penalty. But for that one juror, Byron Halsey would have been executed. But guess what? 19 years later, Byron Halsey walked out of jail because he was wrongfully convicted. So not only would we have executed an innocent person, but as a result of that, we discovered who actually did the murder, and that person went to prison. So we're going to deal with your son's issue, but the wrongfully committed ones, we have to do on a case-by-case basis, and we will. Governor.
Senator, just to Mary's point, just so you know, Senator, that the Attorney General, Gilbert Garral, has now started a review unit that's being conviction review unit. Thanks, Tyrone. That's being seen by the former Essex County prosecutor, now Judge Carolyn Murray. And so that Mary, and I know with your friendship with Senator Lesniak and Gail, I would reach out. And could I just also, so that's on that point, but just, Senator, so I could just bring to your attention to go to what Sean said. With lifetime parole for sex offenders, and I think the legislation passed in the late 90s, there used to be approximately 13% of sex offenders on parole. Now it's 54%. And so what's happening is to go to, I don't know if it was Gail's point or Cookie's point in terms of max outs. Right now, I think it was Cookie's point in terms of max outs right now. We have among the highest percentages of max outs in the country. That the national average is 22%. We're now hovering at 44%. Yeah, 33%.
Governor, we do need to move on, but certainly eliminating mandatory minimums. Took a big step, and also presumptive parole that's in Earn Your Way Out is going to do a lot with max outs. Cookie, real brief, we have some questions from the audience.
My earlier comment was make the money go back into it, but everything doesn't cost money. The prison programs that existed in the Department of Corrections in the past is how I met Gail, is how I met Anton, is how prisoners were included in the Working Summit agenda, and that doesn't exist anymore. The current volunteer process in the Department of Corrections is that you must be a nationally accredited curriculum to be part of any programming inside the prison. There are armies and armies of volunteers that no longer can attend or help with resume writing, with job skills, with all of the things that professors, department,
Not only do we have to change the culture of corrections, we have to get corrections officials who care about the people who are in prison. So, and Governor, while you're at it, when you talk to the Attorney General, because he was invited, okay, ask him to weigh in to get the governor to support Earn Your Way Out. Right, Governor? You going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah.
All right, I'll check in with you in 2 days. We have a question.
It's very apropos to what this, oh, is it on?
There you go, right there.
Oh, okay. It is very apropos to your question on volunteerism. And I wanted to address that. I'm a clinical social worker, but I volunteer with Jim Mcgreevey's program every week and do narrative therapy. You know how many volunteers you could get to do the work that you're asking for? Clinical professors. We both share Georgetown University, and they recently are doing the students, and also they're asking for alumni. There's so many volunteers that you could corral on a volunteer basis.
You are so right, but again, it goes down to the fact we need the culture and the commitment and the compassion of people in the Department of Corrections that we just do not have right now. So we're going to change that.
But you have that commitment in the reentry program.
That's fine, but we got to get it. We have to start the moment that person gets into prison. We have other questions we have to. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Brewer from the Willingboro area, also a chaplain. We just came here tonight to learn about the Earn Your Way Out, and as representatives for a person who is still in East Jersey, prison, Mr. Richard Morris. I'm here with his wife and his siblings. And I just have a quick question. I do want to say thank you because this is a wealth of information, and we are so interested. I believe it's former Councilwoman Cheney did such a fabulous job at explaining exactly what we want to get involved with and to do in order to help get this bill passed. So whatever we can do as a community in Willingboro, we're willing to do that. But one of the questions, and I think 3 of them were answered already, from the person that is still in East Jersey prison, Mr. Richard Morris, was does this bill apply to people that aren't under NERA no matter what the charges are? That's one of the questions he had.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Okay. Does this bill apply to people that aren't under NERA no matter what the charges are?
NERA meaning no early release?
Yes.
It does. It does not. Well, excuse me. Again, the bill applies to every person in prison. What does not apply is the time off for participating in a program, but they still will be able to get the education and all the other training programs and the reentry plan that's developed when they enter prison so that they can work towards the future.
And I think you answered this question. Are they doing away with mandatory minimum?
Well, we did do away with the most significant mandatory minimum for drug offenses. There are still others, and there is a sentencing reform commission. Mr. Sandra, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, how you doing? Whoops. I think I'm loud enough. So my name is No? All right. So my name is Hassan Chowdhury. I used to be a former prosecutor for over 10 years. And right now in the state, there's like 3 major sets of mandatory minimums you have. One is the NERA, the No Early Release Act that you find. That's for the most serious stuff. You have the Graves Act sentencing, which is for the firearms. And then you have Brimage, which was for the repeat drug offenders. Brimage is kind of taking a secondary seat because now we have the drug courts. We have a lot more options for people charged with higher drug crimes to get into drug courts. But as for, I think it's a little bit of a trade-off because I sat on the Supreme Court Committee for the bail reform, right? And as you know, as of January 1st, 2017, one of the things is that most of the people now, not all of them, but a majority of them are getting out because they didn't want to create a debtor's prison. But in a trade-off for that, you're still keeping the No Early Release Act statute because there's certain crimes that are just so vicious and heinous, you know, that the legislature, based on the populace, really does have to keep that mandatory period of parole and eligibility, in these cases 85%. So I don't think that particular statute is going anywhere. As for the gun charges, they have made certain exceptions now through Attorney General guidelines for PTI. If somebody from another state accidentally drives in with their firearm, so on, and you know, what have you. But I think for the most major crimes, that mandatory minimum is not going to go anywhere.
Okay, but again, let's make this clear. That does not mean they will be left behind because they will still be given an opportunity to improve themselves while they're in prison.
And
So,
I'm sorry,
yes,
Senator.
no, go ahead.
One of the most important things is, I'm glad you brought that up because in getting the petition signed, you're going to come across people who have been victimized. And what they will say to you is, and one of the first people who I asked to help when I was getting this done, her granddaughter was viciously killed. And she was like, I'm not signing it. And I said, this is not for that person to come out, okay? But that doesn't mean while that person is in there that they're to be treated like an animal. You still have to give them some type of rehabilitation so that in the event, if that person does come out, when they do come out, that they're going to be able to be productive in society. When you dehumanize a person and then you still release them, then you are going to cause that person to go back to prison because that's all they know. If you treat somebody inhumanely long enough, they will act inhumane. So when you get this petition, and Mary has copies, so we have some blank ones, so you could take them and reproduce them and encourage other churches, encourage nonprofits, encourage other people so that we can get these petitions signed quickly before the assembly goes out. Because it takes political will and political decision-making to have the people that are in the DOC to treat people more humanely. If they thought they were going to lose their job for being disrespectful, which they are disrespectful, then they would change their minds on how they treat people.
Thank you, Gail. Sally, we have one more question. I want you to, two more questions, but then I want you to lay out some instructions, how everyone can participate in getting petitions signed. But first, two more questions.
Lisa Parker. My question is about Bishop James. You mentioned something about a living wage for people that are being released, and Governor Mcgreevey mentioned something about housing. Housing is critical because when you talk about affordable housing, if you don't have a living wage, and I'm not talking about entry-level jobs, if you're not making an average income of $87,000 a year, how do you afford $900 a month when you have to pay car fare, eat, just the basic necessities? So what is being done about real housing that is affordable?
Not enough, that's for sure. And Renee, we're going to talk about my $650 million program to make affordable housing available in urban communities that need it. So, Sarah, one more question? Three more, sure, of course.
Hi, my name's Jacqueline Mayers. It sounds like you're kind of going to talk about this, but I wanted to know as constituents, like what exactly we can do. When is this going to be voted on? Like what's the urgency of it?
Let me answer that question right away. We don't, first of all, there's an urgency to it.
Yeah.
We don't know when it's going to be voted on. It's been bottled up for a year. As Councilwoman Gail, I get so confused. Cheney feel, at my age it happens, man. But the legislature will break at the end of June or soon thereafter if they don't get a budget. But we want to try to get it. So there's great urgency to do it, and Sarah's going to outline how everybody can participate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Silverman, and I'm representing the Unitarian Universalist Faith Action Group. We advocate for social justice reform in New Jersey, legislative initiatives, and we heartily support Earn Your Way Out, solitary confinement, max out, and voting rights. Been watching them all very closely for many, 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 many months, and very frustrated that there hasn't been passage of any of these great bills. There's thousands of Unitarian Universalists, UUs, in New Jersey who are willing to do whatever is necessary to get this done. So sign us up. We're here to move these things forward. So anything we can do to help, please let us know.
Fantastic. We're putting you down for 10,000 signatures. And you're going to exceed it. One more question?
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? My name is Tyrone Gatson. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I'm with the Newark Housing Coalition, also Project Yield. I started Project Yield downstate in 1999 all the way up until when I was released. My question is, you spoke about the act that y'all came out with, which I did attend this last year when they Earn Your Way Out was actually being presented in Trenton before the Senate. And you spoke about that it is now for everybody that's in prison. My concern is those who are in prison is doing life sentences, that's been there for decades, that's actually dying inside the prison system. I'm corresponding with them. When I came out, I turned my Project Yield not only for the lifers, but for people that's homeless right here in Newark. And I know unfortunately there's a lot of people coming out on parole. They're being put into not halfway back programs, they're being put into shelters in the city of Newark. And they ended up on the streets with no jobs, no housing, anything. And these people are wondering what is the committees going to do to actually get these people inside housing. actually get them jobs. Some of them have ID, some of them don't have identification cards. With my Newark Homeless Coalition and my Project Yield, I work on the streets of Newark. I work at Penn Station, I work in Camden, the Walter Rail Line, I work in Trenton, at the train stations. The people that's actually homeless living on the streets, I was taking most of them to Elizabeth, right here in this area, to actually say, well, we would go to active staffing programs. They got an ID and Social Security card. I would try to get some of these parolees jobs and everything. Same thing with the homeless people. But the basic question is, the ones that are left behind, if there's a Earn Your Way Out Act, what about the ones that's in jail that have been there for decades? And there's also people out here right now that's been paroled 10, 15, 20 years ago. They still on parole, unfortunately. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get most of these people off of parole, because I guess the Division of Parole is supposed to be in charge of this, but they say, well, the money, all the funds and everything has to come through Trenton, and that they don't know the actual parole laws back then from the 2A laws. People from 2A are sitting out right here in the society right now waiting to get paroled. That's been on parole for 15, 20 years. And the ones that's coming out right now, even the ones that under the 2C law, they end up in halfway houses. Those halfway houses don't want them no more, so they go to shelters in the city of Newark.
Ray, I can handle this.
Okay,
real quick.
and briefly, because we want to get to, but, you know, both David and the governor and Sean you should talk to after the forum is over. But David, you want to say a few words?
In brief, what this is the beginning of a change of the culture of the prison system in New Jersey. So what you're talking about is part of this cultural change, and it's going to take a while. But this meeting tonight is extraordinary because it's the beginning of a radical shift from the lock 'em up kind of style into giving services where people actually earn them, can bring them in the prison, earn those services, and come out ready to work, ready to raise a family, ready to be a mature citizen. So this is just the beginning.
Yes,
We're gonna work on those
I
issues.
understand it, because when I came out in 2015, unfortunately, I did 40 years. I was sentenced on a life sentence. When I came out, there was programs available for people that's coming out. Mr. Mcgreevey actually opened up something in Newark at the Reentry Center at 31 Prince Street. Ms. Gail Muhammad here, back in the 80s, and she started different programs for families against mandatory minimum. She also had the release process, no early release process, where hundreds of people were actually put back in society. Those individuals became successful, but today's society now with the release process is totally different from then. There's not too many programs out there available to them.
We're going to have to get going, but there's going to be time for you to talk to Sean and Governor Mcgreevey. I would suggest that, because they'll be all over it to help you, for sure.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And Dave as well. So now I'm going to turn it over. This is the most important part of tonight's program. How do we get Earn Your Way Out past the Assembly and signed into law by the governor? But first, I want to ask you to give a big hand to the person who put this event all together, our director of the Lesniak Institute, Sandra Mack. Give Sarah a big hand. And by the way, give her another hand, because I think today is the first anniversary of her first year as director of the Lesniak Institute.
Right.
Bravo.
Happy anniversary.
Sarah, tell us how we're going to get this done.
Wonderful. Well, it has been quite the ride working with you, Senator Lesniak. Very fun, and I've learned a lot. So let me tell you guys what you can do now. So we've put together this packet of materials in this folder. Sorry. So we put together this packet of materials in this folder, and it explains all the information that you need to know about this legislation. And this is not only available in this packet, but it's also available on our website. So you can go to lesniakinstitute.org/EWO, and you can see the background of this legislation. You can see why we're advocating for it, and you can also see what you can do about it. So we've put together 4 different asks, as we call them, for you to work on, to ask different people to do different things to push this legislation forward.
Can you run that slide back specifically go over the 4 asks?
Yes.
Can you
Asia?
move, slide person, can you go back to ask?
Can we go to
start with
ask number one?
One more. One more. Going backwards is difficult. There we go.
Okay,
Go ahead.
perfect. So we have ask number 1 as contact assembly.
Who's doing a slideshow? Leave that ask number 1 up there while Sarah's speaking, please. No. It's 3, 2. There we go. Number 1.
Okay, so ask number 1 is to contact Assemblyman Bergicelli.
No. Who's doing the slides? Is it on auto? Oh, you can't. I'm sorry. All right. That's a technical error.
So the first ask is to contact Assemblyman Bergicelli. He is the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Assembly, and right now this is where the bill is stuck. It's in his committee. So what we can do as constituents is contact him and ask him to, number 1, support this bill, and number 2, post it for a vote in his committee. The next ask we have, ask number 2, is to contact the Speaker of the Assembly, Craig Coughlin. And we're going to ask for his support of Earn Your Way Out as well, and ask him to post it for a vote in the General Assembly as soon as it leaves the Appropriations Committee. The third ask that we have for you guys is to contact Governor Murphy. This is a big one. This is going to get the word out about Earn Your Way Out. So if we ask Governor Murphy to publicly announce his support for this legislation, it's going to move that much quicker. Not only that, but then we have his commitment to sign this into law when it reaches his desk. And then the last ask that we have for you guys to work on is just simply by going on your own social media and posting. We've put together a little example, and we've said, I'm advocating for the most significant criminal justice reform initiative being considered in America. Hashtag EWO Forum 2019, and tag us, the Lesniak Institute. So this is going to let your followers on social media know that you're advocating for this legislation and hopefully move it forward. We also have Gail Cheney Field's petition on our website as well. Again, the link was lesniakinstitute.org/EWO, and all of these actions that I've mentioned are available there for you to take action on.
All right, Sarah, give Sarah a big hand. And I want to thank.
Please, Senator.
Yes.
On the website.
Yes.
Is the email address for Coughlin?
Yes, it's all on there.
Yes, so actually we
Phone
put,
numbers too?
we don't have the phone numbers, we do have all of their email addresses, and we've put together a sample email. So in the packet is an example of how to write a letter to your legislator, and we suggest, putting 2 different parts in it. 1, tell them why it matters to you, tell them a personal story, tell them why it's significant, and number 2, you have to thank them, conclude by asking, your ask again, and make that very prominent throughout, and make sure you sign it with your name, where you're from, et cetera. So all of that is available on the website.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Gail, for clarifying that. Because just go to the lesniakinstitute.org/EWO, and if everyone does that, we will make sure, we're going to make sure, but it will happen, and we'll have a signing ceremony with the governor as soon as possible. Thank you for coming here and participating. Give yourselves a big hand.
There is refreshments in that room over there.